Okay, thanks. Welcome to our Sustainable Packaging Succinct seminar. Tons of alliteration there. So we appreciate everybody taking time out of your mornings to join us today, to join Oyster South and the folks that can hop on. Just really grateful to see everybody's faces. So really glad to be here. Just a couple of quick announcements. For those of you who joined last time, and for those who are new to the series, we are doing, instead of our in-person symposium, our annual industry symposium where we get together every year, we're doing 1 hour, one topic once a month. So that way we can see each other's faces, learn some things, but then not have to sit on the entire day. The last seminar is available, as will this one be, on our YouTube channel, and you can find that link on our website as well. And for anybody who's new,
what is our website?
Our website, I was getting to that, because for anybody who happens to be new and does not know what Oyster South is, we are a 501c3 not-for-profit, and we support and sustain and just promote and just love everybody who has anything to do with Southern sustainable oysters, anywhere from farmers to shuckers, students, wholesalers, retailers, artists, media, like anybody. So just kind of an all-inclusive support system for Southern oysters. But of course, we have the East Coast and we have the West Coast, so it's all one big oyster land to me. So that's just a really quick overview of who we are and what we do. And for more information and for our link, you can go to oystersouth.com. So that's my little infomercial. And in that spirit, I do want to say real quick that today we're going to be seeing specific packaging materials and maybe some that are branded. But I want you all to know that this is not an infomercial for any of those companies or products. It's just, these are things that people in the industry have come across and found useful. And so we're just kind of sharing that with you all. So I just wanted you to know. The other thing, okay, I've talked about our YouTube. And the next announcement I want to make, I did say it last time, but just in case if you missed it, we are planning on our in-person, yes, I said it, in-person Landlocked for October 24th on Sunday. I see Becky falling out of her chair. So y'all please mark that down. And we hope that, definitely hope we can get together, because that's going to be one heck of a party, that's for sure. So with that, I am going to start introducing our panel and people helping. So behind the scenes, we've got Rusty Grice. Thank you, Rusty, for helping us run the show. Also, Bill Walton, who is helping us run the show and do the Mentimeter. And then we've got Becky Wasden up there, waving her hands, just helping coordinate communications, helping on the tech side, and just thank you all for that so much. Our panelists today, we have Mary Smith from Inland Seafood. We have Patrick McMurray, Shucker Patty, who's just world-class shucker, restaurateur, champion of all things sustainable oysters. So Patty, thank you for joining us. And we have our very own Scott Maurer from Louisiana Oyster Company in Grand Isle. Scott, thank you so much for joining. And I have to tell you all, they each have such a unique perspective. And I hear, and I've seen, I'm not going to spoil it, they do have props too. So, I mean, we're going to have like a full on like talking, we're going to see some stuff. So it's going to be really, really fun. And if anybody has questions, like I said, in the chat box, I see some links of, for that Mentimeter, for the YouTube channel. It helps us, and it also helps the panelists kind of, steer what they might address. If y'all have questions, go ahead and throw those in the chat box. So I think with that, we will jump right into the Mentimeter, Bill, is that right? Okay, so we're gonna put that up. So y'all have your phones, get those things ready, and you will see a link come up that you can click on and then answer the questions.
I think with these podcasts, simplicity is the key.
Oh, if somebody is unmuted, I don't know who it is, could you please mute yourself? And I know that's funny coming from me who talks all the time. Okay, so it should be on your screen. Okay, Do you currently use styrofoam
first,
packaging
if I may.
in your business?
So for people who haven't done it yet, if on your in a browser window or on your phone, if you go to menti.com, it'll ask you for that code, the 8907-5003. Once people are logged into that, you should see this question. And so when you're happy, I can move it on. But let people have a chance to enter and respond.
Okay. Yeah, we'll give people a couple minutes. Bill, does it automatically, if we go to the next one, does it still record or no? It's like once you, okay. All right. All right. So we'll give people a few minutes. Okay. So while people are answering, I'm going to throw out some fun facts. I'm going to do it about people. Like this is one of those icebreaker things. So I'm going to start with the behind the scenes people. And Rusty, you've got to send me one because I do have some fun facts about you, but I'd like to hear. I'd like to hear one you would like for me to share. So for Bill, his fun fact is that he wants, and I can attest to this, he once served up cocktails to actors Ted Danson and Mary Steenburgen and also Walter Cronkite. So there you go, brushes with greatness.
For them.
Oh, for them. Oh, snap. Okay. Well, there you go. Oh. And for our other behind the scenes person, Miss Becky, so many to choose from, I'm just going to say it. But the one that I decided to go with to share with our group was, as a child, an 8-year-old girl, she was part of Barnum and Bailey's circus, and she got to ride in a golden chariot behind a fake unicorn, which apparently looked pretty real. So anyone who knows Becky, and even for those folks who don't, this really is not a surprise, but a fun fact nonetheless. All right, yes, please, let's go to the next one, sure, yep.
Right, so you can see it's no from Slate Advantage.
Okay, perfect. All right, so the next question, all right, same thing. Everybody should be logged in at this point. Yep. Okay, great. Just go ahead and answer that one. This is more of like a ranking one. What factors are most important in your ability to use biodegradable packaging? Temperature control, durability, price, or other. Oh, the rainbow font thing did work. Oh, see, it was agonizing for me. We had to pick the color scheme we wanted. I went with rainbow. I hope everybody likes this. Excellent. All right, awesome. It looks like temperature control is winning out. That's kind of what I figured. It'll be interesting to see the others. I always like seeing what the others are. Okay, great. So you want to do the next one for a couple minutes? Okay, we'll move on to the next one. All right, last one. Would more sustainable packaging increase your sales? Like, do you think that this would help you sell more oysters or help in your messaging? All right, we're all over the place, people. This is great, though, to see this information. Well, you know, and these kinds of things are always fun. I mean, they're fun, but they're useful because you think people will answer one way, and then in fact, the data does not tell you what you might have thought. So science. Okay. Oh, we see in our chat box, people are putting in announcements. I see John Supan put in something. Speaking of putting things on calendars, October 23rd, Fort Morgan, Alabama, the Fort Morgan Oyster Festival. Thank you, Soup, for putting that up there. Okay.
You want to close that down?
Yeah, how do I? Oh, yeah, you do it. Okay, thank you for doing that. Okay, so thank you all for answering those questions. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker, Mary Smith, Inland Seafood. Thank you, Mary. And her fun fact is that last year, Mary completed not her first, not her second, her third Ironman. Which I was like, one Ironman, that's impressive, but 3, that's amazing. So thank you for sharing that, Mary, and thanks for being here. I'll turn it over to you.
Great to be here. Now, if I can just get my slide share to work. Oops. I have a bar covering. Okay, there we go. So by going first, I guess I get the opportunity to sort of set the stage. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the current packaging situation, especially for seafood producers. So I'm coming at it from some of a sort of a wholesaler perspective, things that we see and experience at Inland as we produce and deliver all kinds of products to different sorts of customers. So obviously plastic, very important to our lives. I love the Menti question, kind of set this up to talk about what we're looking for when it comes to packaging. Right now, we really rely on plastics because of the sort of the things that were mentioned in that question: durability, temperature control, etc. But here's the problem: we're using entirely too much plastic, especially single use. From a production standpoint, plastic is a problem. The production of plastic causes all kinds of environmental problems. And as you've probably experienced, some of these packaging opportunities are really struggling during the pandemic because of production issues, whether we have factories that are shut down because of the pandemic, or we have transportation issues, products coming in from around the world hung up in logistical issues, definitely a problem. And our demand for plastics continues to rise. So in addition to production issues around plastic, we have the issues that it causes once it enters the environment. So we're all familiar with these horrible pictures of sea life that are struggling with plastic pollution, the impact on the ocean itself, disruption to coastal areas, and then this growing concern about microplastics as they have entered the oceans and other food streams and begin to enter humans. Definitely troubling. I know that from a seafood marketing standpoint, the seafood industry is beleaguered by issues that keep consumption of seafood down. You know, whether it's overfishing, mercury in seafood, and now we're seeing more news come out about microplastics in seafood. My biggest mission is getting people to consume more seafood. And the last thing that I need is another reason for them to pass by seafood and pick up some chicken. So when we're talking about change in the industry, I just sort of want to touch a little bit about some ideas around trying to make the switch from plastics, styrofoam, and other problematic packaging materials to biodegradable plastics. So we see change coming from individuals that are asking for a change. So I included here a little bit of copy from a change.org petition that was encouraging Food Lion and other retailers to switch away from plastic bags. So this is individual people asking for the change they want in the world. In this case, less single-use plastics. Then I also shared a little image from Food Lion's website currently, where they're making strong commitments to reducing plastic usage. So for Inland, this is definitely what's driving our work in alternative packaging. It's because Food Lion is one of our largest customers, and they're telling us in 5 years, we're not going to be able to use plastic packaging anymore. So whether plastic is bad for the environment or not almost becomes irrelevant because these are demands that are coming down from major retailers. And in all honesty, that's really what's driven most of the sustainability change over the last decade, if not longer. It's demands from major retailers for this kind of change. So for those of you that answered no on the question about will sustainable packaging help sales, I would encourage you to think of the idea that you may not be able to get sales if you're looking into that retail market. What about recycling plastic packaging as an option, or trying to find a recycled product? You know what, any effort is great, but realizing the realities of recycling or using recycled plastic, it doesn't make that much of an impact. Now, I'm not saying don't recycle plastic. I'm just saying that we need to be realistic about the direction that we're heading. So the big note here is to just focus on reducing the amount of plastic that you're using while increasing the share of renewable materials. I just want to touch really quickly on some ideas to look at beyond packaging. I know we're going to talk a lot more about packaging with some other people, but so two approaches that I want you to think about: supporting projects that are reducing plastic's impact on the ocean, and then something we'll just refer to as plastic offsets. So first, if you're not familiar with the Global Ghost Gear Initiative, triple GI, as we like to say, because we need another acronym. They're a really effective organization that's doing a lot to address and remove plastics from the ocean, specifically ocean plastic pollution that is coming from fishing gear. So kind of a lot of text on this slide. You can maybe reflect on that later as I sort of click through here. But obviously, like I mentioned, plastics in the ocean, big problem. Bigger problem for the seafood industry's image is that a fair amount of that plastic, especially the larger plastic, is coming directly from fishing and from aquaculture. So just really quick to touch on plastics in the aquaculture industry, just a few facts here, where that plastic pollution might be coming from, not just in the packaging that you're using for your products, but in the process of farming itself. The Aquaculture Stewardship Council has sort of taken a direct line to start to address plastics in the ocean. One thing that's amazing about oysters is we don't have to waste a lot of time telling the story about the sustainability of oysters themselves anymore. When I have customers looking for a sustainable seafood item, oysters, absolutely no brainer. So now the focus becomes more about how the oysters are being raised, the materials possibly used at your farm sites, and then the packaging that you're using to sell and ship those oysters, which we'll talk much more about coming up next. So check out the Aquaculture Stewardship Council and the work that they're doing. You may not be interested in having your product ASC certified, but there are a lot of great resources here on how to talk about plastics. So the 5 R's that many of us are familiar with: reduce, reuse, and recycle, and then recover and refuse when possible. So just sort of a quick way to guide yourself around some different ways that you can limit your exposure or the ocean's exposure to plastics. And when I say plastics, I mean, also styrofoam and aluminum, many products that we use. We can say have all these similar problems, but none, I think, with the staying power of plastic. I think you'll get a copy of this PowerPoint possibly. I can also send these links so that you can dig in a little more at your leisure around the ASC and the work they're doing around plastics, and then learn more about the GI. So then the last thing that I wanted to cover really quickly is this idea of plastic offsets. So as I mentioned in the beginning, we love plastic because it has so many positive attributes. It's pretty difficult to move away from it. So I'm going to stop my screen share here at this point, and we'll move over to maybe some props. So plastic offsets are the opportunity to transitioning away from plastics to sort of try to help the problem that may be created. So I don't know if anybody uses this brand of miso, but this is a delicious product, a great plastic container. I mean, if you're like me, you never buy Tupperware, you just reuse these things as your Tupperware. So I try to get a couple uses out of any plastic that I buy if there's no alternative. But the great thing about this Magic Miso is that they're doing a plastic offset. So one of the things I showed was the plastic neutral certified. So this is something that you can look into while you're using plastics. You can give money to an organization that is doing plastic recovery, and you're sort of offsetting the use of plastic in your own organization. So this is something that people do with carbon. You've probably heard that term, carbon offsets. So check that out. It's a nice way to connect with customers and let them know that you're aware of the problems that may be coming with your plastic packaging. And then another funny one that I just didn't even realize until I was getting ready is this bracelet that I often wear. I usually wear it when I'm going to see my boss because it was his idea to get it. But this bracelet is from an organization called 4Oceans, and they're a plastic offset essentially. So you can buy these bracelets that have recycled plastic beads on them. A portion of your purchase goes to collecting ocean plastic, and then you can sort of signal that you're a member of the future of recyclable packaging movement by wearing this. We first saw this because the seafood buyer from Food Lion was wearing one at the Boston Seafood Show 2 years ago, and everyone kind of clued in on it. And to me, it was just a great way for us to all acknowledge that we're doing our best to find alternatives to plastic packaging, but the real struggle is that the technology is not quite there for us yet. So I think you're going to see next some examples of those opportunities in alternative packaging, and the goal is to get them available as soon as possible. So I feel like my time might be coming short here. I have more I'd love to talk about. So Inland, we're always available for you if you have questions about the larger seafood industry and alternative packaging. And with that, I'll hand it on to the next speaker. Thanks for your time.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Just trying to figure that out. Sorry. Mary, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, that was awesome. Really appreciate all that great information. And yep, I threw it in the chat box. Y'all can go check out the recording later if there was something you didn't get to scribble down. And please, email any of our speakers directly. I'm just kind of talking for y'all, but feel free to reach out later. So Mary, thank you again. Our next speaker, we're going to move on, is Shucker Patty. Patrick, if you're ready, you're up. And I have to quick share. Of course, he's got a fun fact. He's got a multitude of them. But the one that I'm going to share is that as a child, his parents were in the antique business. They were antique fans, bought and sold a bunch of things. And apparently his childhood home was just that. People would come in, look at things, buy things, that sort of deal. And one evening, his dad literally sold his bed out from underneath him. So
midnight, dad comes into my room, shakes me, Patrick, get up, go to my bed. Okay, daddy, why? I'm selling your bed. Okay. And I woke up in the morning, I just didn't know where it was, but literally sold the bed out from, I think he tried to sell me for an extra 50 cents or whatnot, but he could, no sale.
Well,
So
thanks for being here. I'm going to turn it over to you right now.
My pleasure. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for putting up with this. My name is Patrick McMurray, AKA Shucker Patty. I am world champion Guinness Book of World Records, oyster shucker, and now educator. I teach at Centennial College in Toronto, culinary hospitality and entrepreneurship and a whole bunch of stuff. I have built 2 restaurants from scratch and do oysters. It's my specialty. And as a restaurateur and a person who brings in a lot of oysters, I got very good at, because I'm from Toronto, I don't have local water, so I don't have local oysters. I got very good at importing from all over the place. So I would see French oysters and Irish oysters and English oysters, as well as great American oysters, as well as Canadian oysters. And with that, the different packages that came in. So over the 20,000 years of me working in the oyster industry, I have collected a knowledge of the different styles of packaging. And I've noticed that there's a lot of plastics used, and I had a desire in my own head to make sure or see if there was a way to either reuse, use, or recycle and or reduce the amount of plastics going into the system from the beginning. Because when it comes to me as a restaurateur, I got to deal with it. A lot of times the packages, for those people who don't think that packages sways the way people buy them, New York City won't buy wax, restaurateurs won't buy box or cardboard, which is why a lot of your oysters are packaged in the mesh bag, because they have to reduce the volume of garbage that they put out as a thing. And New York's a huge market. So that's why there's a lot of, that's what I heard from restaurateurs in New York City. Raspberry Point up in Canada, PEI, changes their packaging for New York specifically. They usually do a wax cardboard for just about everywhere else. Now they do mesh bag for the New York City or the American market, which is interesting to see. The other thing that we, sorry, the other thing that I've seen over time frame, that's okay. Someone's got the speaker on. I got a couple of slides here. So that's my background. And I do a lot of talking about oyster mostly, but then it's always about the packaging. And I've had oyster growers talk to me about their boxes and packaging. And if you're going to build something, Becky and I are the only people who get to see your boxes. Whatever you package it in, it's the restaurateur, the shucker gets to see it. That's about it. Apart from that, the customer does not get to see much of it. So if you can make any part of your box usable into a second stream use, do that. So I've got a couple of examples here as I go through it. So with my picture slide here, it's only 2 pages. I try to keep it short and sweet. Wax cardboard is not recyclable, is what we deal with a lot of times. You can see the strapping on a lot of these boxes as well. That's a plastic or a polypropylene that could be recyclable. And if it is a recyclable plastic, like it said in the past slide, 9% actually gets recycled. As you can see, I use it as a hairnet sometimes. This is a mesh bag that oysters came in. And they get, I understand why it's used. It's fabulous. It comes in a spool. You tie a knot. That's your bottom. You fill your oysters, tie a knot. That's your top. You send it. It goes into a master box of styrofoam, plastic, and gel pack into a wax board, shipped to inland or other wholesalers. It gets broken apart at that point. So what I do as a restaurateur, the picture just below beside me there, I will use the different colored bags and just put the keep the oysters in their natural bag because it looks nice, and we try to use it and say, hey, this is how the oysters get shipped. Not necessarily in my mind as well the best way of showcasing an oyster. Personally, in a bag or a mesh format, oysters can get jumbled around, and you can get the end user will have a hard time dealing with it because you'll have some loss on that bag. I think a box format tends to be better and softer on the shellfish as it comes into it to the restaurant. So the strapping, I had a couple of growers up north in Canada. They showcased their box to me once. They had 4 straps on a wax cardboard box. I go, I'm only going to pick it up by 1 strap, and you only need 1 strap to keep it closed. So why don't you just reduce that by give me 1 strap instead of 4 straps? And they went, huh. So yeah, I go, you've now reduced the amount of plastic that you're spending on. It always comes down to the monies and sustainability. It's the economic factor is very big, especially as fishermen. You have to think about that as well. Cardboard boxes right now, wax cardboard has increased from $3 to $5 to now $7 Canadian. That's like $300 American. But we have, because Amazon has gone and bought up all the cardboard, you're seeing an increase in your price. So if you can reduce that or change it in any way, it would be fantastic as well. My top left-hand corner over here, there's a plastic liner that I believe is being used for showcasing oysters from West Coast. Originally, this idea and concept comes from Australia. They individually, like little eggs, put their little oysters in and put that in, and it's deliciously cute and everything. But in 120 count, you got 4 layers of plastic holding those oysters separated, wrapped by a plastic, put into a wax cardboard, all of which becomes nightmarish for us retail or restaurateurs to use afterwards. That works more in Australia. Their style of shucking and shucking houses, a lot of restaurants don't actually shuck in the house. It goes to a shucking house, like in the restaurants, and the restaurants buy pre-shucked oysters, so those trays work nicely for something that's been shucked and put into a box and taken to the restaurant. So they've used this in their wholesale packaging, which I think is a little much because the oysters can survive a trip, but it makes them look pretty or whatnot. So reducing that would be a great idea. Down in the bottom corner here, polypropylene corrugated box is now the latest thing that you'll see, either a single folded up or 2-part, a top and a bottom. Honeymoon Oysters here from New Brunswick is just showcases the style of it. The box, the picture to the side with the yellow is one of the boxes. And what I did is I took, as a shucker, I take it apart. I told this group here specifically, make every flap count. So take that box when you're designing it, have the top flap cut off. That becomes a sign that can go into a grocery store container or the restaurant or the caterer. And as it's a polypropylene, it's nice because it's waterproof. All I do is throw ice into it. Like those cereal boxes back in the day, you pour the milk in, the Fruit Loops and the really healthy stuff. So now I just use this concept. And so if you're going to design a package, try to make sure that it gets to the end use. You want to showcase your brand. You want to do that and make it very useful for the caterers. If I had a choice to choose between an oyster in a mesh bag and an oyster in a box that I can use as a catering kit, guess what I'm going to buy? the box. I'm going to use something like that so I can use it again and showcases nicely on my palette. So using the idea of your box as a secondary or a third use, and using it as many times as possible, helps that situation in reducing plastics and the naughtiness of the whole thing. So some of my solutions when it comes down to reducing everything. Oh, the other thing that's going on now is retail packaging. I'm sure Inland knows that since COVID, 90%, up to 90% of your retail, of your sales disappeared, because that all oysters go to restaurants more or less. The balance is retail has exploded. So everyone is now going down to the retail size. The problem is with retail is that now you've gone from a 100 count box to a 12 count or a 24 count. That's all the retail people want to buy, but they want to see that style of packaging. That means in the volume of sales, boxes have increased because you're now using, 4 times more packaging to create that. So the idea is to build something, and a lot of restaurants and grocery stores now are becoming that plastic-free zone. What's going to happen? The French, the Irish, the English, for 100 years have been using wood. Wood boxes are deliciously gorgeous. It has that natural product feel to it. And I have a couple of solutions as well. I've been working with a bunch of different groups over the past year or 2 years, actually. I've been trying to do a recyclable or returnable program with somebody. And I've been looking out there, and there's a couple of groups going out there like that. This is a 12 count from New Brunswick box. It goes with a cellophane top over top, and staples it down, puts 12 oysters into it. And for me as a restaurateur, this is delicious. I use this wood all the time for signs, for anything. I will stack it up, dry it out, because it's a nice clean pine. It will go back to the customers who have fireplaces. Boom, secondary use, looks really nice. And we get to collect it at the house all the time. And so there's different wood groups in Canada, and I know they do this in the States as well, that you can find these packages that will do it. This GL here is a wood box that does food grade style wood boxes. I was working with another group in British Columbia to do one out of cedar. If you think of cedar planking, cedar boxes, you make a nice box that goes back together. You put the oysters right in, you can literally soak it and plank roast your oysters right away. So without even opening it, makes it even simpler for the clients. So we're looking at something like that. The picture in the middle, you'll see a basket. That is what the Irish oysters get shipped out in, and it looks like a little apple basket. And they can be little wood boxes. The one below is a website that comes out of France. Cask and Peck Bay Oysters and Prince Edward Island went and bought oyster boxes from France because they've been doing it for hundreds of years. They just have the system to do it. So they bought their boxes in France, bring them in, and that's their retail packaging, which even restaurants would like to do this, because to put that box up on the bed looks really nice. You can put it into a tray and then put that out to the table. Looks delicious as well. One of my really big ideas that I still want to go to is going back to the beginning. 100 years ago, we would all package our oysters in burlap bags. This is a group that does a food grade burlap bag. That means that it's FDA approved. And then you can put your oysters in that, roll them up tight, single plastic strap, 3 or 4 to a master box, ship that out, and each bag could hold 100 oysters, which at that point, being burlap, could be compostable, secondary, third dairy use. If you want to use shucking as an example, I would take that burlap bag, and instead of using this, which is a kitchen cloth, to a restaurateur, this represents 15 cents each time you use this. And my monkeys who are shucking oysters at the bar burn a hole in each one. They have to basically throw this out. I can't send it back to the linen company. They charge me for it anyway. So that costs money and water and stuff to burn. And you just throw this out. Unfortunately, that's not great for the environment as well. That's why I designed my oyster tray or whatnot. I just shuck with a stainless steel glove and a little wooden puck and the stainless steel board. That's all. I don't use any cloth when I'm shucking oysters because it's wasteful. Burlap bag, send oysters in, that becomes a shucking cloth afterwards. You fold that thing up and you have a secondary use for it, and use it and use it and use it until it burns out. Then you compost it. So it's an idea that uses your packaging into a secondary concept and idea. That's more of the natural format that I can do. The second one that I've started looking into as well is this Biotech Bioplastics, something that's biodegradable. The Canadian-made bioplastics, this one here is a Plant Tree. I spoke with them 2 weeks ago, and with that oyster mesh hat that I was wearing, they can make that style of plastic mesh that is biodegradable within a 3 to 4 month time frame once it hits the actual the earth. So in the garbage system, so that can be a biodegradable system. Cointre is out of Ireland. They're using chitin and seaweed packaging as well as not PLA. It's a seaweed-based packaging they can use for liquids. Your Ironman marathon, they did a marathon with the top little liquid bottle. You just pop it in your mouth, and the thing just melts afterwards, but it held the liquid. So it was one of these things that's fantastically thought of. The paper bottle company is actually making beer bottles for Carlsberg and other very large groups to create something that is compostable instead of that's glass recyclable. And the most exciting that I found was just last week, Loblaws, which is a large grocery store chain here in Toronto, is working with this group called Loop. Loop is a returnable packaging system. You may have heard about this as well at Inland. There's a picture right there that you Haagen-Dazs ice cream in a container, like your yogurt container. I can put 12 to 24 oysters in that stainless steel can. So I called them up and they said, this is fantastic. I've never heard of this. You could do this as a retail pack, stainless steel. And what happens with this system? It's a returnable system. You buy it at the store, you return it at the store. It costs you $5 extra, you get that back. That goes into the Loop system, which creates, they wash it and send it back to the source, the oyster growers, to repackage it and send it out again. It's a big, big, big undertaking. But these groups is with TerraCycle, and they do Tetra Paks and recycling they actually recycle cigarette butts. So as a restaurateur, I have a special butt collector at the front, not my butt, the oysters, the cigarette butt, and then they recycle them as well. But they are a global entity and they're doing it on every continent right now. They're trying to collect and create that closed loop mentality of a returnable box. And in the end, you could create a 100-count stainless steel box that goes back to this group and gets recycled. And that's it's kind of a neat little thing. And I got a 1-minute wrap up. This is, I can see it on the TV, they're going like this. That's all I got to say, because I can keep going forever and ever, and we have to pass it along. So thank you very much for listening. If you have any other questions, I don't know, drop me a line, call me. Done. Beth, you're hit the mute there, Beth.
Unmute. Okay, we're just having.
There you go.
There we go. We're like in the same room here, so sorry, y'all. There's a little dead air there. Patrick, thank you so much. That was so like super duper packed with so many nuggets of information. Thank you. And I see there's some questions coming in and comments, so just y'all keep them coming. These are super useful, especially to go back and look at. I just want to roll into our next speaker before we get to our tech talks. We have Scott Maurer from the Louisiana Oyster Company joining us from the grower perspective and just things he's come across, strategies, funky products, ideas. And real quick, of course, have to share his fun fact. And his fun fact, which, you know, anybody who knows Scott, even those who don't, explains so much. As a child, love that we're getting all these like childhood things. He ended up plunking himself square in the forehead with a hatchet. That's it. I'm going to let him tell you the details. So with that, Scott, you're up. Unmute yourself, Scott. Sorry. Please unmute yourself.
All right. You guys got me now?
Got you.
Yeah. So my dad was a plasterer, and we were at a house working on a job, and I liked playing drums. So when I didn't have a job to do, I would set up drywall buckets and play drums with drywall hatchets, and I hit one really hard and it just bounced back and stuck in my head. And my dad was on stilts, and I go up to him and say, "Dad," you know, and he, "Oh man." So he just pulled it out of my head, took a Band-Aid out of his wallet, put it on there and said, "Go wash up the tools. We might go home early." We didn't, but yeah, went home, and then Grandma, you know, then like rips it back open, puts mercurochrome, if anybody remembers that stuff. So I have this huge orange forehead. So that was a fun fact from my childhood. That's finish the day's work. You know, we always got to get the job done. That's priority one.
It's
But,
always the dads. It's always the
it
dads
is.
that do
It's
stuff.
always
It's
the
always
dads.
us. We get everyone in trouble.
It made me who I am today, though. It's great. I'm very hard-headed. So, anyways, I'll keep my presentation fairly short. I started going down a lot of these rabbit holes early in the year, and as we know, 2020 was 2020, and I didn't get to fully explore a lot of these things that I was, pursuing. So everything I'm presenting is fairly incomplete, but it at least give you an idea of some of the things that we're looking at. So to start with, like the mesh bags, is there an alternative for those mesh bags? The interesting thing that I found, and even just finding out where those come from, the pellets that are sourced for the making of those actually originate in Louisiana. They then go to Washington. Those bags are made. Then it goes to Boston. Then we buy it from Boston back down to Louisiana. So the first thing that I've done just to make things better, it's not a best practice, but better, is to at least source those things directly from the manufacturer in Washington to cut out the Boston leg. And that's step one. So we have those, coming in to the Gulf directly. So it's just Louisiana, Washington, Louisiana. The next step are these guys right here. This is a organic cotton mesh bag, also doubled as a hairnet and great for robbing banks. The cool thing about these is, it's an organic material. In figuring out how to source these, there's a Molly. All Mollies from New York are cool, by the way. So Molly from Eco Bags in New York is helping us try to come up with a natural fiber that is sustainable for us. I didn't realize how crazy the cotton industry is. They only use organic or recycled cotton, and there's lots of bad things that happen in the cotton industry. Slave labor in China and so forth, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But I kind of was like, is it better than plastic? So even non-organic cotton is better than plastic. Ways that we can improve the strength of it is by, like hemp can be very expensive, but if we blend hemp with cotton, it will increase the strength. We can then use a larger mesh and hopefully cut the cost down. Secondly, how do you close it? Normally we just, tie a knot in the bag. From rigging on an oyster farm, you pay for every knot. A 1/2-inch rope will take about 1 foot of rope. That knot costs you 1 foot of rope. So things that we can do instead of tying the knot are like cutting up old t-shirts. Those, you can make strings out of that old t-shirt material and use that, or even just, natural fiber string. But that's one thing that we're kind of, trying to work on and trying to get a more cost-effective, natural fiber bag. And especially using this for like spat on shell. If you have a spat on shell project, why are we putting plastic spat bags, in the water? It should be a natural fiber. I also was really big into the burlap, but as with COVID, there's a everything shortage. So all of the burlap that's coming from India has skyrocketed, and that kind of became, problematic and cost prohibitive, and the supply was, kind of crazy. Hopefully that comes back down because I'm big into burlap. So that's kind of, a start on the mesh bags. The other thing is, we're talking about retail. So that was a 12-inch tube. This is a much smaller sausage casing. So if you only have 1 or 2 dozen oysters, we can package them in a tighter tube that actually has a nice, it's a really, better looking package. And we don't have all of the waste of the big bags. So that's the mesh. My biggest thing that I've tried to do as a farmer, just to reduce packaging, is to stay local. So I just try to avoid this packaging altogether. And that's probably why you haven't seen my oysters in a lot of restaurants, because until I can't sell all of my product locally, I'm not gonna ship it out of state. I know that's not, sustainable for everybody, and everybody wants to experience that taste of place. So I'm not against shipping the oysters, but I want to reduce that, as much as possible. So even with the local restaurants, in Louisiana, we have crab lugs. So I have been using these reusable crab lugs, take it into the restaurant. And the incentive that I give them, that's the only time that I give a reduced price, is if they buy that many oysters in that lug, it could save me as much as $20 in packaging over, you know, the multiple cardboard boxes. They then run it through their dishwasher. We've even had them fill it full of shells that I then take back to the farm. So we do a lot of that stuff here locally that doesn't really apply to the, you know, the larger retail or, you know, shipping market. But that's my number one thing that I personally do as a farmer, is just really try to focus on staying local and selling everything as local as possible. When it gets into shipping, I think it'd be nice if we could kind of come to some sort of consensus on like a universal box size. The box size that I use is a 16 by 16, and it's a multi-dimensional. So it can be anywhere from 8, 10, 12, 14, or 16 inches tall. So that gives me a lot of, you know, flexibility in the shipping box size itself. And if we were all using the same size box, you could then start kind of, you know, cutting costs down a little bit. There's a lot of fun things to do with packaging, and restaurants and sellers of oysters love all of these fun things. And I'm kind of the marketing curmudgeon there that doesn't like putting stickers on boxes, just because of, you know, just creating, you know, more material and stuff. So I'm more of the get a wood stamp, dip it in soy ink, and put it on a brown, you know, cardboard box. But there's room for all of this, you know, in the game. There's also, when it comes to retail and shipping, we did just a little bit of that. And there is a machine that actually corrugates paper. The whole theory behind insulation is just by creating air pockets. And we know from being oyster farmers, the most expensive thing to ship is air. That's why floats are so expensive. It's not that they're heavy, they just take up vast amounts of space. So the first thing that you can do to reduce carbon emissions and cost and everything on packaging, if you're buying a pre-made styrofoam chest, you're shipping at least a cubic foot of air. So the first thing you can do is, if you're going to use styrofoam, at least get that made in panels. Those panels can then stack, and you can put those panels inside of a box, and that will save on your shipping cost and your storage on the farm. The next thing that and once again, we haven't dialed this in, but it really shows promise, is that corrugated paper. There's a machine that you can, that I actually have here, and you just load it with 2 rolls of paper. Paper stacks, you know, flat. This comes like fan folded, you know, just like paper towels do. And you just stack this fan folded paper in there. And as you run these 2 pieces of paper through the machine, it corrugates them into panels that you then put into the box. So your shipping size is then reduced drastically. So 2 packs of paper can make something like 300 boxes, you know, and that would normally take a garage to warehouse that much packaging material. Whereas now you're creating it on site, and it's a reusable. The other interesting thing about the paper is it acts as a desiccant. So that's a benefit of using that as a packaging, you know, material as well. Then you get into the gel packs. There's drain safe gel packs, and it's 100% more cost, but only like 30 cents. And when I was in the restaurant business, I actually ran a wine program at a brewing company. And the thought process there was, you put dollars in the bank, not percentages. The beer only cost 10 cents to make and sold for $3. So that's a huge percentage of markup. Whereas the glass of wine would cost us $3 to pour, but it sells for $9. And if someone's only going to drink 2 to 4 glasses anyways, selling that wine put more dollars in the bank, even though it was a different percentage. So us in the boutique oyster business, if you add 30 cents on to the overall order, even though that represents 100%, you know, increase in your cost of packaging, it's still only 30 cents. So that's basically what I have. I could go on for a long time. I don't know how I'm doing on time.
You are perfect. You are like right on. Yes, perfect.
All right,
perfect.
Good. Cut. I'm done.
Thank you for that. No, that's awesome. I know you have a ton more you could talk about, so really appreciate that, all the information. If you think of anything else, stick it in the chat box. You know what I'm saying? If you're like, oh, I forgot to mention, or a link or something, throw it in there. And y'all, thank you for the comments and the questions. Just keep them coming. At the beginning of our talk, I may or may not have mentioned that we have some 3-minute tech talks. It's a little bit different because we're not in person. And typically what we do is we have speakers at the front talking about a farm innovation, and it has to be to 3 minutes. And if they go over, we kind of clap them off the stage. But because we're doing it remotely, we have had a couple of folks submit 3-minute videos. So I trust that they actually are 3 minutes. So with that technical aspect, I'm going to hand it over, get out of the way here, hand it to Bill.
Well, I would just say, I know for sustainable packaging that probably is something we can do at the next Oyster South seminar symposium,
yes,
since
yeah.
there's clearly interest in it.
Oh my gosh, yes, y'all. If this seems like a really great topic that everybody I know always has questions about and suggestions, so certainly we'll revisit it again in the future. Okay, Bill.
But to keep to your promise of
Sorry,
an hour,
yes, time. I know.
So you all should be able to see.
French Sherman
so many
Oyster.
boxes. All right.
Mike Arguelles.
And then, so Mike Arguelles submitted this, and I'm hoping that the sound works for you all. Can you hear that?
Audio, Bill.
You got it.
Here it comes.
From the bottom. When we Mike Arguelles with the French Sherman Oyster Company, and I've got an invention to share with the 3-minute tech talk. This is a harness cable for lifting the cages from the bottom. When we sink our cages for a storm, when we go back, sometimes the pontoons are stuck in the mud. And so when we look through the cage itself, we do damage to the cage with a winch. We break these wires, and then the floats go away. So this device allows us to lift from the pontoons, and this is the way it works. There's a bungee in there. Now, that cable is pulling from the inside of the float. This is a float that keep it on the surface, but there's somebody in the water, and they hook it up like that, and then the winch can lift it. Now, once the cage is off the bottom, we transfer the hook to the cage itself. Can you do that, Mike? Now, once the cage is in this position, we can remove the bridle with the cables by pulling on the side pipe. That's designed to make the pipe come out first. Now, we cannot lift this cage with water in the pontoons, and sometimes there'll be sand in the pontoons, so we insert this wash down hose with a pipe that's long enough to come out the bottom, and we wash that. And now the water goes out as we lift. So we can lift that all the way to the water line with this winch. And with it in that position, we can reinstall all 4 caps and then put it back in the water.
Okay. All right. And that is Mike's Tech Talk, which I know is under 3 minutes. Can you all hear me? Can I get a thumbs up from you, Scott? All right, perfect. So Garrett, you should be able to unmute yourself. Garrett is with Shell Game Products, and he's going to do a brief talk about his shell washer.
Yeah, this is just something really simple that we came up with to wash the oysters on the boat. Should we go forward?
All right. So that's the picture that you sent me, Garrett.
Yeah,
the video.
so all of this is just a SureFlow wash down pump from West Marine. And then we hooked it up. We built this little stand for it so that the water actually jettisons off the boat and keeps all the water and mud out of the boat, which is a necessary evil because the bilge pump is, you know, they work when they want to work sometimes. And then if you want to go forward, you can play the video.
All right.
And that's pretty much it. Really simple. Just it's just a tub with some holes drilled out the bottom, and then the little piece of metal that jettisons the water overboard.
All right. Then
It's something that we use every day.
And there you go. That's the final product, right, Garrett?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Garrett. Appreciate that. And I think Garrett can give you some of the details. If anybody has questions about the details of what he does for that, you can. He is here today. Mike was not able to make it. So if you have questions, you could certainly funnel them through Oyster South, or we can get contact information for Mike.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Garrett.
Thank you, Garrett. Yeah, y'all, I forgot to do the fun fact. So real quick. So Mike's fun fact, even though he couldn't be here today, he's told me that long ago, he actually came up with preliminary designs for a hovercraft. So to this day, it's like rumored that he may or may not be the inventor of the hovercraft. And Garrett, of course, so many fun facts about Garrett Krueger, but the one we're going to share today is that while in college, he was good enough that he played or was part of the U.S. archery team. So there you go. I love all these fun facts. And so I think, Bill, did you have something?
Yeah, we're
Sorry.
just going to do that.
Hold on.
The Mentimeter.
Oh, we're going to do the Mentimeter. Okay. I know we're doing wrap up stuff. We're trying to get a bunch of stuff in so we stay true to our 1 hour. So if y'all can get out your phones again.
So the 3 topics, we're asking questions about rate your level of knowledge on the 3 things we did today before we started. And then after that, we're going to ask you what you think your net level of knowledge was after. So if you go to menti.com, you can do that on your phone. It gives you this code of 8907-5003. And we're going to give you a couple minutes. This is, again, your knowledge before today's seminar. We've only got, 7 responses so far. I'll let a few more people. So from totally new to me to experts.
We know there's some experts in here.
You can see as this comes up, it not only shows you the average, it shows you the distribution, which is kind of cool to see.
I'm just trying to see other. Okay, so while people are answering, or for people who have answered, a couple other quick announcements, or just 1 or 2, because I know we're coming up on our hour. The last seminar in this series will be on Friday, April 16th. So everybody, please mark your calendars. The topic that day is going to be diversity and inclusion in the Oyster South community. So we've got some really exciting people that we're hopefully going to have on our panel, and we'll keep you all posted as people confirm. Okay, so the next question is up, which is rate your knowledge after today's seminar on the different things. Let's see, pontoons, oyster washer, sustainable packaging options, totally new to me, or expert level. I'll see again with the expert. We got a lot of oyster washer experts. I'm just saying, y'all are good. Is this, how many more questions do we have?
That's it.
Oh, that's it. Oh, do you have anything?
I have nothing to add.
Yeah, I don't believe that. Oh, I got to get my phone out because I want to get a picture of everybody. So I think we have, oh gosh, we're at 11. So I have to stay true. If y'all want to just get your faces back on before we sign off, so I can get a picture of everybody. Just want to thank our speakers, everybody. Gosh, Mary, Patty, Scott, Rusty behind the scenes, Becky, Bill, Mike, and Garrett. Hey, Garrett, I know Mike couldn't be here. Maybe Anita's on. Just thank you so much. And again, feel free, just go to our YouTube channel and go to our website. We'll have the transcript there. We'll have the recording. You can see all the links to everything, and you can see everybody's comments and questions. And I'm going to do this. Sorry, I'm definitely going to get everybody's picture here. So as many people as possible. Feel free to post whatever y'all want. Thank you so much. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend, and just call, email anytime. We love you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We'll see y'all soon.